we got a hot topic though. We're gonna
We
have
have
to
a
revisit that anyways.
Oh
This is so
yeah,
much to talk
we're not
about.
going to be able to cover everything in this episode, but
Yeah, this is
rest
hot.
for sure, this is a great opening window for it.
It is, man. This
And
is two topics that I feel it's one of those topics that stay hot all year long. I feel,
oh yeah, of
which
course.
we got mass incarceration and we got police brutality. That's a good way to put it,
Hold on,
right?
hold on, hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We
Mm.
have to make sure that we invite our audience here. So
Oh, okay,
let's not
okay,
get ahead of
okay.
yourself. Hello and welcome to another broadcast, not live, another
Mm.
broadcast. I'm Macho, that's Savory, and together we are Drinks with a Nobody, and you're watching us on Nobody TV. Be sure to follow us on Twitch at MachoFix88 and at Savory_Edition. Be sure to also follow us on Twitter. Our handles there are the same at MachoFix88 and at Savory_Edition. Hey Savory, how's TikTok?
We booming. We live now. We making it happen. We having some fun. What up? What up? What up? TikTok.
All right. Be sure to also follow us on TikTok at Savory_Edition and at MachoFix88. I'm building up the TikTok, so please show your love, show your support. And in case you miss any of our previous broadcasts, be sure to go to YouTube, type in Drinks with a Nobody, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so when we go live, you know it, and you never miss a thing. That's it.
Yes,
Hey, Savory,
sir.
can you answer this question for me? Who do we want to target, and why do we want an audience in the first place? Why are we doing this?
Ooh, for all my Twitter fam, for all my YouTube, for all the TikTokers, for all of y'all, man, is one reason we're trying to unite a community here, talk about all these topics, quite frankly, that a lot of people are scared to talk about. So there's a topic in mind that, or thoughts you have inside of things you're scared to talk about. This channel might be a channel for you to join us, talk freely, have some fun with us, So today we're doing mass incarceration, police interaction, and we're talking about some of those hot topics that never go out of style, Let's do
That's
this.
right. And please do not do this without a drink, folks. Go in that fridge, grab your beverage of choice. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. Whatever it is you want to drink. Savory, what are you drinking today?
I got an iced coffee, cold brew,
I got a
some
water.
coconut milk. You got some water. All right.
Mhm. So pop that open, sit back, relax, and prepare to engage. What do we got, Savory?
How are we opening this, man? Some opposing perspectives is only right. We open this trying to show both sides of the perspective. I think a lot of people, before we play these videos, are gonna land in one or the other of these videos, right? Like I think you're gonna resonate with one and not resonate with the other. It's just the nature of these two videos. So
Or
let's play
perhaps
these two videos, huh?
or perhaps get a bit of both.
Yeah,
You may
that's
be able to take
ideal.
from both. Yeah.
But in the kind of political landscape, most people fall into one category or the other, So hopefully that's not the case, but
And
we'll see.
basically what we're covering today is mass incarceration, systemic
Mhm.
racism, talking things we have coverages from footage from black conservatives on the topic, and we don't feel like their voices are heard enough.
Mhm.
And we know that a lot of liberal perspectives are out because they cover the mainstream.
Facts.
So let's give these black voices, these black conservative voices, a listen,
Mhm.
hear their arguments, give them a chance, and see where you think they stand. Here's a video clip I found on why they think we have a mass incarceration problem. Check this out.
The United States is exceptional, at least when it comes to being the world's biggest jailer. 2.2 million people are imprisoned in the US, more than in any country in the world, more than even China, who dwarfs us population-wise. When you count the people who aren't just incarcerated but on probation or parole, the number skyrockets to 6.9 million. That's 1 in 35 American adults caught up in the prison system. And for people of color, it's even worse. 1 out of every 3 African American men born today will go to jail or prison at some point in their lives.
You think it's important to make those distinctions, Savory?
Which one specifically? The 1 out of 3?
The 1 out of 3, the people of color, it drastically or disproportionately affects
Um,
them.
yes, with more context. You know what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with saying that, but I
Oh,
just feel we miss too much context. Like, you can't just say it's like me saying, 40% of Hispanic and Black families end up getting a divorce, and then you end it there and you say it's because we're horrible at being families. What? You know what I'm saying? Let's
there's
explain a
more
little
to
more.
that. There's more to that,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
But why? How did the so-called land of the free put so many of its own citizens behind bars? If you think it was always like this, it wasn't. Back in the 1960s, our incarceration rates were the same as Europe's. And if you think there's just more crime here,
But that doesn't tell me anything. The same as Europe's. It doesn't tell me
Mhm.
anything. Now, if I'm just watching at face value, not going into history, not going into books, I'm uneducated deplorable here, right? What what are you telling me there? It's the same as Europe's. Could Europe be high too?
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, what are they saying there?
that's not true either. Our crime rates are pretty much on par with the rest of the Western world. I asked Alicia Santo, a staff writer at the Marshall Project, for some insight.
The reason that America has the highest incarceration rate, to put it simply, is tough on crime policies. Over the past few decades,
Do you agree or disagree?
Tough on crime policy. Again, well, it could be in some cases, but they're making a general assumption, which I don't believe across the board from the knowledge I have, that across the board, it's like, you know, they're dismissing the changes and crime, actual violent crimes in communities and why people are actually going to jail, right? I think there's a lot more to that.
Yeah.
Again, they're selectively choosing information, in my opinion, right here.
Proof, but they're
Mhm.
telling it to a point because they're trying to spin it a certain way. Like they're trying to bend it so that it's like they're trying to be tough on crime, but it seems like they're also trying to be tougher on blacks.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where I'm
yeah.
getting at here.
Well,
a
not
number
tougher is the narrative they're building around the black incarceration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
of very harsh policies have been enacted in state and federal legislatures. A lot of these had to do with longer sentences. Some of these had to do with so-called three strikes laws, which basically said that if you got in trouble 3 times, you had to be in prison, regardless often of how petty those crimes were.
To get a sense of how prison-happy Americans are, consider that in Germany, only 6% of people convicted get locked up. Compare that to 70% of people convicted in the US. And Americans wind up behind bars for longer. The average sentence in the US is 3 years. That's 3 times longer than in Germany. Harsh drug laws are also part of the problem. The 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse
All right, so we're gonna put a thumb on this too, so our audience
Mhm.
knows. This is important part because we're gonna talk about this. They try to slither this in. This is also because of the Drug Abuse Act. This is usually an argument on the left that majority of the people who are incarcerated for long, extensive times are because of drugs. And I don't know about that. Some part of that may be true, but I think it's a bit disingenuous.
Act instituted a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years without parole for possession of 5 grams of crack. Guess how much cocaine you had to possess to trigger the same minimum sentence? 500 grams. Interesting when you look at who consumes each drug.
You see how they had to do this?
Yeah,
You see
because
how it
it's
bends? It's a bending. It's look,
yeah.
whites are not as affected as blacks. See?
So, Macho, you had an interesting, I thought, eye-opening perspective that you educated me on a little earlier. Can you tell people about that?
Absolutely. I can definitely tell and I can also show. So, Larry Elder wrote a piece in a it's called the Tribune Democrat, and
Mhm.
this was written a long time ago, almost 20 years, maybe even almost 30 years at this point. And it was a very provocative piece. And he said things like, if you want to know why blacks are whom are in jail for similar drug offenses, such as crack versus cocaine, why don't you look into the members of the Black Caucus who
Mm.
fought and
Ooh.
argued for the bill to be distinguished. So here's an example, just a snippet. When President Ronald Reagan signed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, which was referenced in the video,
Hmm.
the law that punished crack cocaine dealers far more harshly than powder cocaine dealers, Harlem's rep, Harlem's, not talking
Hmm.
any other Harlem's, New York,
Hmm.
Charlie
Harlem.
Rangel stood right behind Reagan. Crack dealers, many of whom were black, got harsher sentences than those who dealt powder cocaine, many of whom were white. And the
Oh,
Congressional Black Caucus members pushed Reagan to create the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Then
wow.
came the massive 1994 Violent Crime, Control and Law Enforcement Act, which include longer sentences for first time offenders. So it's a continuum. It's there's a multi-layered,
Wow.
multifaceted argument to this. And I basically, what I would like to do here, Savory, is I would like to stop this. I put a thumb on this because
Hmm.
we
So
already know where they're
Congressional
going
Black
here.
Caucus then um supported that early on and continued in these new laws being passed. You're telling me even going past Reagan?
Yes, it's
Wow.
compounded. It's almost like a sandwich. You have Reagan on one end, and you have President Clinton on the other hand, and you have two parties. You have Republican Party and you have the Democrat Party. Both both legislated harsh punishments towards people in these categories,
Got
cocaine and crack.
Okay, okay, I see.
And you know who would explain this a bit better? None other than Jason Riley, who is
Mm.
he's a columnist for Wall Street Journal. He's also a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, so he knows a thing or two about these things. And here's what he had to say.
Here we
In
go. You
terms of
needed
the
that intro.
drug war, I think there's a little revisionist history going on here. You mentioned the 1980s and the crack epidemic of that period um, that led to legislation being passed that treated crack cocaine offenses more harshly than powder cocaine offenses. And of course,
That's what I meant. Thank you.
blacks were more likely to use crack cocaine than powder cocaine, which was more prevalent among whites. What people leave out of that story is who led the fight for passing legislation that differentiated between sentencing for penalties for crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. It was the Congressional Black Caucus. People like Charlie Rangel and Major Owens, congressman from New York City, led the fight
Wow.
to install
Wow.
those differentials that are, in hindsight, all these decades later, suddenly viewed as racist. People conveniently forget who
Wow.
pushed for this because of what crack cocaine was doing to their communities.
We're forgetting conveniently
So the
because it
yeah.
didn't work out. It didn't work out the way they thought it would.
Yeah, wow, because they actually thought it would do good, right? We like to think at least, in actually getting rid of the crack in their neighborhood, right? The reason it would do that because it would be a reality check, it seems like, right? That reality check would wake them up like, yo, we can't be doing this. People are getting locked up, but it didn't. It actually accelerated the incarceration and crime and all that. Wow, that's
And
eye.
it had a negative reaction or impact on the minority community, which they started rioting. They started, pushing back. Why are you incarcerating us for these low level offenses? Why are you doing? And it was the members of the Black Caucus.
Yeah, who were leading the charge. Not only supported, it seems like they were leading
Yeah.
the charge.
And
Because
this was a different time. This was a different time frame. Black people were calling for this kind of legislation.
wow, yeah,
They
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
actually calling for this.
People forget the New York, right? Us being raised in New York, the New York in the 90s and
It
early
was
2000s,
bad.
it's a different
And in
beast.
the 80s.
In
And
the
in the
80s
80s
too,
too.
you know what I'm saying? That was, my cousins, brother who are older than me, but from the 90s up, like it's a New York, like it was dangerous. You couldn't go outside, drugs everywhere. You had to be careful. It was a whole different mind. And so people who are not from New York, that's just inside scoop of how New York was. So these people supported that to hopefully change, but it didn't work. And now that it's backfiring, they kind of like washed their hands from it. Wow.
Yeah. And again, that was one perspective
Yeah, that's one
that we just
perspective.
showed
That's
you.
beautiful
And,
right
and
there.
it looked like it leaned more left. All right. If I'm going to make my analysis, it looked like it leaned
Yeah.
more left. We have a video clip here, PragerU, and obviously people hear that name, they're going to automatically know PragerU is more right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. I'm obvious. We know this. We're not delusional. We want to make it clear of the biases so that we can have things centered on the table, so we can discuss these things. So let's roll that clip on why they're titled their video as "Why So Many People Go to Prison."
Our prisons are crowded with people who shouldn't be there, the victims of a racist justice system. This is the popular progressive narrative, but it's wrong in every respect. Dangerously wrong. The US does have a very large prison population, not because too many innocent people are incarcerated, but because too many people commit serious, usually violent crimes. With rare exceptions, that's why most people are imprisoned in America. Period. Full stop. Before presenting the facts, let me add these caveats. It's unacceptable that any innocent person is behind bars. Punishment must always fit, not exceed the crime. We should do everything we can to reduce the rates of recidivism, committing more crime after release. And finally, everyone in prison should be treated humanely. But let's not fool ourselves that our prisons are full of people who shouldn't be there. That's simply not the case. Let's start with those convicted of drug offenses, the source of so much of the mass incarceration.
This is, obviously, I lean towards this bias,
Hmm.
but I like the way they open it out. They open out with already the present arguments that the masses or the prominent news stations already come out with.
Hmm.
This is a part of a systemic racist organization. There's a hidden plan or a hidden agenda that the we want to take away the rights of black people, but we want to do it in a more legal format, right? Of modern day era slavery, right? So I like the way they open about out there. They come out swinging, and again, they follow it up with some of their perspectives as to how they combat that, rather than just you know
Yeah, they're getting
act like
into more specifics of actual causes rather than just
right
giving you a anecdote, big picture.
facts.
Myth. While it's true that about half of federal prisoners are incarcerated on drug charges, federal inmates constitute only about 12% of the American prison population.
Mm.
Almost 9 of every 10 prison inmates are in
So that's drastically different from the
That's
previous one.
important. So break that down really quick for people.
It
So
says 12% of the entire prison population. Let me play that right back so I don't
yeah,
misquote it.
play that right back because
percent of
that's
the American prison population. Federal inmates constitute only about 12% of the American prison population.
12% of federal inmates make
Mhm.
about the American prison population. So
Uh,
this is a major distinction that they're making, and it's on purpose. It's intentional. So 12% of the entire American prison population are in federal prison.
mm,
So everywhere else is low level, medium level. It could just be
like a state
regular
level, more
jail.
misdemeanor stuff like
It's
that,
like
right?
jail. It's like jail.
Yeah, it's jail. It's jail. It's the difference between jail and prison. Yeah, yeah.
But what they're insinuating is that the left clumps that all together and
Yeah.
generate their percentages off the entirety of that,
Hmm.
rather than making these distinctions
Yeah.
of prison and regular jail.
They're breaking down the data. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Almost 9 of every 10 prison inmates are in state facilities, and very few of them, less than 15%, are there for drug-related offenses. 4 times that number are behind bars for one of the following serious crimes: murder, 14%, rape or sexual assault, 13%, robbery, 13%, aggravated or simple assault, 11%, and burglary, 9%. In short, violent criminals make up the clear majority of the state prison population. What's
Mm.
more, drug offenders
There
who
it
do
is.
end up in prison don't actually serve very much time. Almost half are released within a year.
And before we get to that part,
That's interesting. You see, those are the data you're breaking it down.
Yeah, I mean, majority of the people in jail are in there for violent crimes. It's very clear, very clear. And then they're going to explain why the low level people are not in there and they're not in state prison. Here's why.
The truth is that most criminals probably spend less time in prison than you think, even for the most violent crimes. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, almost 40% of released state prisoners served less than a year in prison. Even 20% of murderers and nearly 60% of those convicted of rape or sexual assault served less than 5 years in prison.
Wow.
What explains the short stays? Answer?
That's important to know. You hear? Hold up. That's very important to know. We can't just cherry pick this. We can't just say, oh, most of it are drug offenses, but then there's a reality in our system that says the harsh crimes, right, of rape and murder, there's a percentage, 20% in the murder, from what I saw there, and 60% in the rape charges, that they would get sentenced to, let's say, 10, 15 years, and a good percentage of that
would leave
only
early.
get 5 and less or less. That's crazy. That's an important thing to note because you're looking at it holistically and not just through the narrative of Black America or Hispanics. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so much stuff you're leaving out. This is good right here.
And now, I don't want to be misleading. Now, I don't know where they're gathering their statistics. I know they put it there, but they could sometimes, with the right and the left, they will consolidate their consensus to the major cities in the country. So the Los Angeles, Chicago, maybe New York, because these are highly concentrated, highly liberal cities. So a lot of times they will generate their statistics from these places and reflect that as percentages across the country.
Hold up. That's so important and honest for you to mention because, you know, I love things like this because it gives us a reality check of what both sides can do, you know? But here from PragerU, they're pretty legit when it comes at the federal level of statistics. Like they're actually giving you these statistics from these government websites.
Users
to talk about. So that's what I like, you know? But
and that's why it's not that they're lying. And I don't think the previous one is lying. It's just that they're tilting it. They're tilting it here. I don't necessarily feel the tilt here. It's just conservative in its holistic value. In its nature. Very good. It's not tilting. It's not trying to persuade. It's not trying to bend you. There's no realizations on like, oh, look, what gets disproportionate versus the other. No, there's none of that here.
It's just opening your eyes to a different
It's just saying, look, there's another side to this. Maybe it could be this. Maybe it could be these reasons. Instead of just simply saying it's a black-white issue, what if it's cultural? What if it's cultural? Maybe the statistics will show us that. And that's what I like about this.
Plea bargaining. Most prosecutions never go to court. Instead, a deal is made between the defendant's attorney and the prosecutor to avoid going to trial. These negotiations often involve the offender agreeing to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence or dropping or downgrading the most serious charges. As a result, a prisoner's conviction record often understates the crime that landed him behind bars in the first place. For example, an armed burglar who, when arrested, was found to be in possession of illegal drugs might go to prison not for his worst crime, the armed burglary, but for a plea bargain charge of, say, trespass and drug possession. But the media and the activists don't tell us about this rather important detail. Instead, all we hear about is the poor fellow who's serving time for selling a small amount of cocaine. This assumes, of course, that the convicted criminal does any time at all. Studies done by the Justice Department show that only about 40% of felony convictions lead to a prison sentence. Yes, many are given probation, sentenced to home confinement, or given credit for time served in pretrial detention. But most of the time, convicted criminals don't go to prison. Do we really want even more criminals out on the streets? Activists say yes. Scholars at the left-leaning Brennan Center have called for an immediate 40% reduction in the number of inmates. CNN host Van Jones...
Wait. He said most violent criminals
hold up.
don't go to jail.
Is that true? I want to look that up though.
I really want to look that up. See again.
Yeah.
Do I love PragerU? Absolutely. Am I a Prager Force member? Absolutely. I don't know how that part. I'm not stupid either. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
Oh.
good to examine that because maybe they could, like I said, when they consolidate their statistics, they could be going through the course of certain areas to benefit their argument. So, for example, right, let's say if someone tries to fact check them, they can say, well, in Washington, Texas, and Florida, these are the generated statistics that we got, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it would bend towards their answer, but it could be a little disingenuous because when you expand those statistics, you may see more violent criminals actually serving time than not. But I would say that that is a alarming thing to just say like that and not
Yeah.
have anything to back that up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that they have something to kind of back that up.
Yeah, I wonder where they get that data. Yeah, but that's very wow. That's eye opening.
Yeah.
Jones, founder of the hashtag Cut50 initiative, tops that. He wants a 50% reduction. But if the activists get their way, the cost would be high and would likely be paid by the most vulnerable. Most crimes are committed by a small fraction of the population who primarily victimize their own communities. Here's an all too common example. In the spring of 2019, 2 men were charged with the murder of a Chicago woman who was shot while holding her baby. One of the men charged had 9 felony convictions, including for a 2004 second-degree murder charge. A January 2017 University of Chicago crime lab study found that on average, someone arrested for a homicide or shooting in that city had nearly 12 prior arrests.
Wow.
Almost 20% had more than 20. If we cut prison rolls by 20, 40, or 50%, it won't be politicians and media celebrities living in gated communities who will pay the price. It will be the law-abiding citizens and underserved neighborhoods struggling to get ahead who will pay.
And that's the conservative way to argue. It's not about the media, the elites who are arguing for the Cut 50 initiative. Von Jones doesn't have to suffer that. Don Lemon doesn't live in the hood. They live in nice areas. They're protected. You know, they said that Don Lemon lives in Harlem. He does not live in Harlem. He may have an apartment there. He is not going to live in a place
That's where I
where
saw him though, but I think he has a. I did think he has a really nice place in Harlem. So he's like on the west side, really really nice
on
place in
the
Harlem.
west side.
Yeah, like really really nice on all the way in the west side of Harlem. I heard he has a tremendously big nice place there.
I don't doubt he has it. But my whole thing is I don't believe he lives there. There's a difference between having an apartment in a place
I
and
did see him
living
take the
somewhere.
train, so that was surprising. But yeah, that's interesting though.
You know, he could have another alternate location. So, like, if he gets death threats, but then again, this is a liberal city. He probably is coveted here. He's probably loved.
Exactly.
Wants
Yeah.
to listen to a long, overdrawn explanation on mass incarceration. If you do
Yeah,
want one, and you want to kill your time, go watch the mass incarceration video movie of what, Netflix. I did
13.
not agree with it. I did not. The 13th Amendment. I did not agree with it. They
Yeah.
don't have real facts, real support to support those claims, and they don't even add the conservative argument to it. So it's like, look, forget it. I'm not even. You want to waste your time watching it? Sure, watch it.
Yeah,
Have a
it's
good time.
definitely one side. I would tell people to watch it, but then also get it takes work to get the other side of the discussion. That's the problem, you know. So
Yeah, and again, we have conservative black voices out there who talk about these things and haven't been heard enough.
mhm.
And I'm sure people heard of Larry Elder because they know he ran for governor in California. Actually, let me take that back. Do you think people ever heard of Larry Elder in these big cities? Do you think they know him if they saw a picture of him?
No, and I'll tell you why. It's because he's huge on the conservative side, but the mainstream media has done a great job keeping off headlines and media, and so it's like he doesn't get that publicity. So people who actually know him only really know him through the perspective of the conservative influencers. So if you
Yeah.
follow some conservatives, you will. If not, if you're busy watching TV and CNN, it's a good chance you never heard of him, which is sad.
Before we go to the Larry Elder section, because again, I want to wrap this prison mass incarceration segment up, because it's going to lead us to a bigger point and a bigger story with the Larry Elder, and then some of the engagement with police in our
Mhm.
communities. But there's a real big reason, and it sounds good and it sounds great the way this man can explain things, but he is very misleading, and I don't think he knows where he's getting his information from
Mhm.
in a way. So I really would like. I'm curious. I actually want to look into him more, Dr. Umar. Where does he get his information from? What is he reading? And I would be curious to know about those authors. So I
So
want to. Yeah,
before
go
you
ahead.
even play that video, I would make this point about him.
Yeah.
He actually gets real statistics, right? But what he does, right? A lot of what they do like you mentioned, on both sides, I would say the left does it more because they have more power through and influence
Yes.
through, media and stuff like that. But both sides do it. Is he'll take a statistic, right? And
Mhm.
then he'll take that statistic and paint and kind of justify his narrative rather than digging deeper on what it could be. You see the difference?
Oh, so the test this I always get tied up with this word. So the statistics
Yeah.
usually are tailored to what he already thinks in his head.
Exactly. So let me give this quick example before you play this. If you are talking to somebody who thinks that the biggest issue in this country is racism, all right, and then you tell this person that 40% of blacks are in prison for minor offense, what's your first thought? It's because of racism. So you're going to take that stat and say and justify what you believe, right? Instead of doing an honest research around
Right.
it, says, man, wait, 40%? But why? Man, how? What neighborhoods? Well, you're saying these are the honest questions that an honest researcher.
And what
eh,
are their behaviors? What are their behaviors to
exactly.
these
Let's dig a
situations?
little deeper. He won't do that. He's justifying his point. So he does get some true statistics and he makes some relevant points. He just justifies his ends of enslavement, blacks, and super pro black in that way. So
Yeah. So on my TikTok, I was able to I was trying to find a YouTube interview of Dr. Umar on the Breakfast Club, where he was talking about slavery and how there was a connection with the prison system. And I found this on TikTok, and I couldn't resist. I had to make a stitch with it.
see
So
what we got
check
here.
this out.
Cops is a black-white thing, or police
Without question.
are police abusing power thing?
It's both. Remember, when slavery ends in 1865, there are no national incarceration systems. Most states didn't even have a fully functioning prison system. Guess when they created the prison system? In 1865. That's when they gave you the first statewide prison systems. Why? Because we got 4 million black folks we just left out of slavery. They don't have jobs. We're not going to give them any, so that means they got to do what to eat, Envy?
Rob
And steal. So we're going to create vagrancy laws. If I catch you stealing anything, guess what? That's a felony.
Why was that? Why did I feel like it was rehearsed? They're gonna rob and steal. I feel like it was rehearsed. Like I felt like
Yeah,
they
you know what it
practiced.
is? He has his points, like the man is ready. He's educated in that sense where he just how Larry Elder has those statistics up here, I'm not gonna lie. He's like that too, right?
Yeah,
But he's
yeah,
just not digging deeper and he's has all those memorized through in an educated way. Like he actually, I believe, has done this kind of research, but again, it's to justify his narrative.
yeah. And you said he always comes ready. He's not gonna sit
Yeah,
there and
he's
just be like duh 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 duh.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm going to put you on the chain gang, and you're going to be on the chain gang for 10 years for stealing a lollipop. This is what they did. You could go to jail for not having a job. You could go to jail for being homeless. They made simple, petty offenses major felonies. So that from the beginning of so-called emancipation, the prison system existed for one reason: to remove black men from the society. The jail is a slave ship.
and
What you
again,
think about
see,
that, Macho? Hold up, keep
hold on,
playing.
hold on,
I want
hold on,
to
hold
know.
on. 1 second. This man doesn't know who Ozzie Davis is. Ozzie Davis created a mini series documentary in the 1960s about the slavery transition and the Jim Crow South. And yes, he was talking about it from a different perspective in terms of more democratic perspective,
Mhm.
but it was a different argument then. It was the racial tension was I'd rather be a nigger than a poor white man. Because in those days, black men were getting jobs. They were able to work where white men didn't know where they fit.
Oh, wow.
So the idea of his argument falls flat because he's not looking at just basic history.
No, he's just ignoring some of the history.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, he
sorry.
knows. He's a smart man. He knows. But yeah,
That's where it ended.
what's your reaction to this?
Check me out.
Really?
I suspect that there are millions of Americans who would be gratified if the whole subject of race simply vanished into thin air because they're sick of hearing about it. But there are people for whom this is a very lucrative business. I'm amazed at how little attention was paid to the fact that Al Sharpton owes the federal government millions of dollars in taxes. You don't owe millions of dollars in taxes unless you've made millions of dollars in income. And the question is, how did this man, ever get in a position to make millions of dollars other than by race hustling?
Ooh, other than
And
by?
then race hustling.
Ooh.
It's very simple. There's no way around it. It's a very lucrative business.
Race hustlers. I'm
You
a
ha-
hustler. I'm a hustler. That's crazy.
It's the only way to do that. Now, that sums up that segment on the whole prison system, and it could be the reason why there's just this strong tension about it because they tie excuse me, they tie systemic racism, or they tie slavery to the prison system.
Yeah.
Because the 13th Amendment is if you have a felony, now you can't vote. Now guess what? You're like a slave again.
Yeah.
It's just part of the clause. And black people don't only fall in that category. White people have committed felonies in this country and can't vote.
Mhm, mhm.
Period.
Yeah.
So don't talk about it from
True.
just one perspective. It's a holistic thing. Anyone, don't say blacks, say anyone who commits a felony cannot vote.
Some people don't want to give America any kind of victory or credit, right? Because then it's like as soon as you admit something is happening across the board through many races and all that, what you do now is you kind of like remove your excuse, and a lot of people don't want. We're in this oppression Olympics now, where it's like
Oppression Olympics, this guy
we,
said.
we we are on it with that. Like oppression is crazy. We're
How
competing
dare
over
you?
more oppressed.
Oppression Olympics, he
It's
said.
crazy, man.
So, in talking about systemic racism, but I also want to add, I am not ignorant to the fact that was the prison system at some point utilized or mobilized to incarcerate free blacks? And do I think so? Maybe.
Mhm.
Maybe to an extent there was some truth to this. They used the prison system in the Southern Jim Crow era or southern parts of the country to justify the means to enslave black people through the prison system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, it's part of our history. We can't avoid that.
Mhm.
But don't justify everything. Don't say that covers everything. That's like a generalization. Savory, we have to be fair. We can't ignore those facts.
Yeah, facts.
We're gonna be straightforward. I saw it. I read it. I
Mhm.
did see the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots, and I have my opinions on that as well. I did see the race riots of Michigan, and I read up on that, and I have my opinions on that as well. I saw the race riots in LA and in Florida. I'm sure Savory has looked at those things, but we're
Mhm.
not ignorant to racism in this country.
Yeah. There's a real note of racism that comes from the past, but now the systemic thing is now being extended for an excuse for a lot of
It's a
people.
power grab.
Yeah, it's a power grab. Race
Yeah.
hustlers. It connects
Yeah.
all, yeah, for sure.
There was a video clip I saw yesterday of this woman hosting just right before I get to this Larry Elder clip. A woman was asking a group of people, if I told you the impacts of black racism, what would you list it as? And everyone goes on and on and on and on and on and on. If I told you the white impacts of racism, what would you say? Not a single thing was said. Not a single thing. You didn't hear a peep. She said, "You
Mhm.
see, that's how powerful black people are."
Oh wow, it's interesting.
That's exactly how powerful, because you guys don't understand.
Oppression Olympics.
You can call a white person a cracker all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
You can call them names, you can fire them for being white. You can do all those things. You cannot hire them. Save you cannot hire them because you're a black-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
But let a white person do that.
Oof, it's racism to the end of
You
town.
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a
she
good
made
point.
a very good, and this was a black woman that made this case. You see, that's exactly how much power black people have in America. And if you don't acknowledge that, then you really just don't want to acknowledge your ignorance at that point.
Yeah.
So here's Larry Elder he had an interview with Dave Rubin on the Rubin report, and Dave Rubin said this was his coming to conservatism. This was like his coming alive. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, now I'm a conservative, and he didn't realize it. And here's what he had to say.
For this, according to this, you are black. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. Okay.
Not African American. That's not a term I like.
How come you don't like the term African
Ridiculous.
American?
I was born and raised in America. I've never been to Africa. Why am I an African American? Most of my people have been here longer than most of the other people in this room. Yet most people don't have a hyphen. Italian American, Greek American, Romanian American. It's an absurd term. It's a term that Jesse Jackson almost single-handedly crammed down the throats of our media. And after Jackson began to talk about why blacks should have some connection to Africa, all of a sudden, New York Times, LA Times, all of the media began using that expression. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't use the term African American that much because one time I had a guest on the show and I referred to her as African American. She said, well, I'm actually Jamaican. So, you know what I mean? So I guess that goes to your point. So,
and I remember reading one time, Dave, somebody...
Dave could have got canceled for that.
In a description of some suspect who had done some crime, was running away, and he was described as an African American. How do you know where he was from? Could have been from Africa, could have been from Jamaica, could have been from Canada.
So what do you make of that when someone like, because I know you really rail against Jesse Jackson and these guys on the left that use, and I want to talk a lot about identity politics.
Okay.
So the guys that use these phrases, what are they going for there?
Well,
what is the goal there?
The goal is to tell black people that we're victims, that discrimination and racism remain major problems in America when in fact they don't. And they want black people to vote for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party gets 95% of the black vote, and the reason they get it is because blacks are convinced that the #1 issue facing the country right now is social justice, racist white cops, discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense. The #1 problem domestically facing this country is a breakdown of the family. And President Obama said it, I didn't. A black kid, or kid, not just a black kid, a kid raised without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. So you're far more likely to end up in jail without having a dad than you are because of a white racist cop.
Right. So, but you wouldn't not acknowledge that there are some systemic issues.
Give me an example.
Well, check this out, though.
This is when he knew he made a mistake.
And that's when he knew he done F up.
Tell me what you think the most systemic racist issue is. What is it?
Well, I would say that because black people in many cases, were descendants of slaves, that racism as an institution, that it just, a certain amount of it just exists.
2015? Give me the most blatant racist example you can
in
come up with right
2015?
I think you could probably find evidence that in general, cops are more willing to shoot if the perpetrator is black than white.
What's your basis for saying that? Last year...
What's your data? What's your data for that? And that's the thing, a lot of leftists, and at the time, Rubin, I would say, was more moderate left. A lot of leftists tend to use historical ideology to validate or try to resonate with the current circumstances or perceive current circumstances of our country.
Ooh, that's good. So a lot of people, they use historical. What's the word you use?
They use historical historical facts or historical
Yeah,
evolution.
they contextualize their argument through a historical fact that might have been true, but they're dragging it to our present time. That's kind of what
It's
it
not that they're dragging it, is that they're using it to resonate or validate why the country is the way it is today.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
the only way they could explain why blacks are living the way they are in projects versus whites living in the suburbs. They need to justify that. They need to, and politicians play on that because they need people to resonate with them. You know how important it is, identity politics is? It changed the whole political climate in our country.
Yeah, that's why every time, and we're about to get into some of this, an election comes around, probably in midterm election and especially presidential elections, you have black unarmed men being shot. You have all these videos circulating. And by the way,
And
some
you
of
think
these
it's done on
videos,
purpose, or you think the video surfacing is done on purpose?
yeah, the video surfacing is done on purpose. Why? This is my evidence for this. Look at some of those videos. They're not something that happened the year of the election. Sometimes they'll bring up a video that happened the prior year, but they bring it up on election year. So I
I'm
don't
on
know who's
Aubrey.
pulling these strings, but how are you going to
Yeah.
bring, like, we're going to see in 2024 a video from 2021, I bet in 2022, that all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying, went viral. You know what I'm saying? These are things coordinated
Yeah.
to a certain extent.
Ahmaud Arbery, I think, was killed in the fall of 2019. And then they surfaced that video in January of 2020.
Yeah, so they do.
And then the George Floyd incident right after that. And then the Breonna Taylor.
Yeah,
I
they
mean, they
stash it.
knew what they were doing. They knew
Stash it to manipulate the black and Hispanic vote. That's it. Let's say what it
And
is.
mind you, the attorney general over the Breonna Taylor case was a black man. The
Yeah.
attorney general of the Breonna,
He gives
black
all
man.
these stats about all these people in these cities are black people who are in powers of leadership and all that. Only in America would you see that. And then it's just, anyways. Yeah, let's keep.
Yeah.
People would say, look what's going on in Chicago.
I know what they would say.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what the facts are. 965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago in 2011, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where is the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop and shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people is BS. It's complete and total BS. And the reason for these so-called activists saying this is the assumption that racism remains a major problem in America. The media, CNN, especially MSNBC, runs down whenever a black cop shoots somebody, and it's some march on Washington. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Black people, half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year there were 14,000 homicides. Not talking about suicides. I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black. 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
Do
So
not talk
there's where you would say
about.
that this is purely because of social justice. This
Pure-
is purely
because of-
because they want ultimately for people to be angry enough to just keep voting.
So right before our eyes, Dave Rubin is like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How do I not look
Awakening
stupid in
for-
front of my audience, you know? But
He owned up to it. He did a good job of doing what he needed to do and inviting him back. So, you know, he got to respect.
yes, and supported him for governorship.
Democrats.
That's right. And where's the evidence of a lack of social justice? When a black suspect is killed by a cop, believe me, the media's on it. People are watching it, and justice will, for the most part, occur. In Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was killed, Freddie Gray died in a van.
Look at
in a
this.
van.
Yeah.
You have a city that's 45% black. City council is 100% Democrat. The majority of city council is black. The top cop at the time was black. The number 2 cop was black. The majority of the command staff is black. The mayor is black. The AG is black. And yet here we are talking about racism. I mean, it's
on.
absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
So it's
Come
funny, I
on.
find myself caught
Come
in between this a
on.
little bit as a liberal where I want to always try to defend the other. So in this case, the other being black people.
I got to do it again. I'm sorry.
I'm always sympathetic to that. And that, at the same time, I hear you laying out a pretty solid
Well,
case.
these are just the facts. I'll tell you something else, too. There was just a study, University of Washington. And it turns out cops were more reluctant, more hesitant to pull the trigger against a black suspect than a white suspect.
Let's do
Probably
it.
because of the fear of being accused of racially profiling and the fear that the civil rights establishment was going to come down on him. So if anything, whites are more likely to be shot by a cop under certain circumstances than a black person. And in the last 30 or 40 years, the percentage of suspects killed by cops who are black has declined 75%. However, the
Wow.
percentage of whites killed by cops has flatlined.
Yeah.
And so, if anything, people are more concerned about shooting black people for fear that they're going to be called racist. And almost every one of these incidents, whether it's Eric Gardner in New York, who died because he was selling Lucy's and resisted arrest, whether it's Tamir Rice in Cleveland, who was twirling around the gun, whether it's Michael Brown in Ferguson, who had just committed a strong arm robbery, almost every one of these incidents involved somebody resisting arrest.
I love the fact that
Yeah,
he brings
that's
those up
beautiful.
because he's showing I'm not ignorant of what went down. I'm not saying this out of ignorance. I
Yeah.
know what happened, but look at there are other layers to it.
Yeah, man.
It's not just
This is beautiful. Transition into these police shootings with a different mindset so we can actually see what are some of the things that are going on, when it
yeah.
comes to, police brutality, people being shot, what happens. Because a lot of the times, right, we're about to play some police shooting videos to kind of show people perspectives that they usually don't acknowledge, right? And it goes deeper than just a black man shot unarmed.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to think about like that. But
Yeah, facts.
let's play some of these here. How most videos, right? This is intentional. We start with this. This is how most videos are showed in the media, and then I'm gonna tell you exactly where they cut off, and then they paint their whole narrative. Check this out.
Uh-oh. Hello.
This is how all videos start that I see. Bam. On the ground. Shoot.
Oh, shoot.
Tell me what happened. That's racism. I'm gonna tell you that's racism.
I don't know what happened. Who did he shoot? Was it a black person?
An argument right now, even if he's black,
And that's usually
white,
the one that gets
Chinese.
released. That's the one that goes out. Yeah.
This is the media. Let's do what the media does.
This is the media.
Let's do what the media does. Oh my God! Look
Pasa,
what happened.
brother?
An innocent person
He
running from
said
the
this
cop.
is the media.
Stay right there for me.
Stay
Both
right
of you.
there.
Hands up in the air. Just
The
stay
media doesn't even play that part, actually.
Oh, that's a white person.
Yeah, but the media doesn't play that part.
No,
media
they
starts-
play
media starts
what's
here.
provocative.
Where the media
Yeah.
starts.
Yo, I heard something drop.
Put your hands out now. Hands out. Hands out now.
That's a black kid or a white kid?
Yep. Hold him. Get that hand out. Get that hand out. Go ahead. Grab that lady. Grab the girl. Get the female. I got cuffs.
Wow. He shot him like
Other
3
camera
times.
view.
Huh?
The other camera view.
On the ground.
That was 3 shots, right?
On the ground now. On the ground. Put your hands out now. Hands out. Hands out now. You good? Yep. Hold him. Get that hand out. Get that hand out. Go ahead. Grab that lady. Grab the girl. Get the female.
All right. Let me tell you something, right? I start with that video before we get to these next videos. Realize this is what bothers me. I don't mind having a conversation about a black person being shot and the unjust of the injustice behind that and all. Like, it might be, but at the end of the day, it pisses me off when you force me to side with you on your side because of a 30-second to 1 minute clip of someone being shot. I don't know who called the cops, what happened.
Why are they there?
He did, and then they'll tell you, yeah, but what did he do? Most people will tell you it doesn't matter.
What do you mean it doesn't matter? Why are they there? Why are the cops don't just show up?
Yeah, like you told me we talked a little later. What's an officer's job? Please tell the people what an officer's job is in this country.
I'll tell you what their job is not. They're not a concierge. They're not a bellhop. They don't carry our bags for us.
Exactly.
They're not a taxi. They don't do any of that. They're not a waiter. Their job is to enforce the law.
Exactly.
And Bill Maher was disingenuous when he said on his show, their job is to serve and protect. What do you think service is? What do you think their service is?
Tables.
Is to
It's
You
crazy.
can't. You're not allowed to be that subtle and say stuff like that. all right?
Like, think about it. What these like you make a great point. They got to enforce the law, and most of these cops are not trying to shoot first. Why? This is the proof. Prior to probably their first interaction, a crazy shooting and a dangerous job, they probably have hundreds of peaceful. Why you don't mention that? Hundreds of peaceful Black, Asian, white, and all these people that they're stopping. So I asked myself, it has to be more to the story. Anyways, to
There's
continue on
always
that.
more to it. Yeah.
That's what the media plays. We need to learn how to respect authority and comply. That is
Yeah.
that's
What is it
something
Larry
nobody else
Elder
talks about.
say? He says, if you comply, you won't die.
Yeah, like there's a lot of truth in it. We don't like to talk about it. And check this video out right here.
Yeah, let's see.
These are one of the most dangerous situations for a cop, right? Pulling somebody over, by the way, right?
Pull to the right side, please.
Check how this interaction starts. All right, look how this starts.
Howdy. You mind putting down the back window, please, for me? All right, awesome. I'm Deputy Blaze with Seminole County Sheriff's Office. Before I ask you any information, the reason I'm pulling you over is because your windows appear way too dark per statute. Okay.
He pulled him over for a reason, right? Usually, FYI, you get pulled over for a reason, right? He can't see his race. He got tinted windows. Even
It's
when you don't have
dark.
tinted windows, you can't notice everybody's race in the car. First of all, tons of white people get pulled over, yeah, even morely so. But they say they die less, which, percentage-wise, but actually tons of them that die yearly. But the point is, a cop usually pulls you over in this manner for a reason, right? There's some assholes out there.
And he told them why he's pulling him over right away.
Yeah, right away. And most do.
I never. When I get that, they'll be like, "Let me get license and registration." Like they had
Yeah.
enough. Like the monotonous of the job. They're like,
Mhm.
license and registration, and I'm like, "Oh, come on! What are you pulling me over for?" I'll
This
tell
is-
you when you give me your license.
Exactly. This interaction is interesting because it doesn't escalate until later. So I'm going to play a few minutes here and then I'm going to fast forward so you can see where escalate. But you can check this out on the.
I remember this. I remember this.
Oh, you
This
do?
was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Police Activity YouTube channel. Y'all can check that out.
Okay. So if you could do me a favor, just roll this window about halfway up. That's good. Right there. So in the state of Florida, the front window can be 25%, back window can be 15%, okay? The lower the number, the darker the tint. Your front window is measuring at 3%, okay?
Oh my God.
Back window, I thought. No. So as you can see, 3. What that means is only 3% of the outside ambient light is getting through your window. Okay, that's why they do that way. Do you have your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance? You can put this back down for me. How's it going this morning? What's that? How's it going this morning, bro?
Now they're having regular conversation. How's it going this morning? He just put a black amount in his mouth. And I'm going to fast forward a bit.
Why you gotta get at him for the black and mild?
The officer right now mentions this, right? From here, I'm going to go to the point. He goes and he tells him he smells weed in the car, right?
Living the dream.
I seen that.
Living the dream.
I see you on the trail looking like what they are.
2513. Rudolph Jr.
Yes, sir.
That name is awesome. That's probably in 14 years, that is probably the best name.
This is not smell like
This is the registration right here.
Okay.
It's saying it's the insurance card.
Yeah, the registration was expired, right?
Got,
I believe.
Sign in.
They don't know yet. He just
Okay.
gets to smell something there. He processed the number through his partner now, so you'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and then I attempt to stop.
This tape sucking up.
About time for you to get a new license.
Yeah, no, I get all that stuff.
Oh, sorry.
So this is where it starts escalating.
Awesome. All right.
Check this out.
Mr. Rudolph.
Yes, sir.
Is there any reason why there would be a faint of weed coming out of your vehicle? Do you smoke? Do you have any friends that smoke? Anything like that?
No, sir. Just black and mild. Probably black and mild smoke. Just black and mild.
No.
So now he asks him this, right? He's not too concerned with the weed because a little later he says, I'm not too concerned with some personal use, whatever. But this man gets really uneasy, and I can guarantee you it's for one reason. Like, you have priors. You don't want to get that in. You don't want to be searched in the car because then his reaction, he gets mad at him, right?
Mm-hmm. So do you think it was worth him bringing it up if he didn't care?
Good question. Good question. Well, what the police officer I think would tell you is like, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, it's probably not worth it. But I'm wondering if he used that to get him out of the car in a de-escalation because his partner's already running the plates. His partner's already running the license. So they might know something else, but strategically a police officer would say, hey, can you just step out of the car? So,
So he probably knows that either his insurance or registration, something's not right.
Or a prior. He might have a felony, but they won't mention that. Why? Because that will get
He's
people
in the car. He's in the car and he can drive off, and now this is a chase.
Exactly. So
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Oh, no, what you gonna see him back then? I just rolled through there.
You see me go? Would you mind shutting the car off, please? Huh?
I'm smoking a black car.
I understand. Just shut the car off for me, please. Okay? All right.
He doesn't do it.
2513, somehow. Step him up, please. It's no big deal. I mean, I'm not.
You gonna take me from a license to marijuana, bro?
Listen. Do me a favor.
Bro.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor. I'm telling you right now.
This is, I didn't know what to think about this in the beginning.
Yeah.
I feel like the cop kind of overreacted too. And then, he doesn't have a weapon, but he's afraid he's going to, I don't know. It was weird to me, but I'll get your thoughts right after this right here.
Yeah.
Stop! Put it in park! Put your hands up!
He's not putting it in park.
Put your freaking hands up!
He's got a gun. He's got a gun at him. That's why.
Sir, I'm telling you. Put your hands up. Put your hands up.
You can tell he keeps looking at the car. I think he's trying to pull off, make sure it's on drive and everything.
Put your hands up. I swear to God. Put your hands up. You put it in park.
Oh, no, he went to grab the gun now. See, now he played himself. He could have shot him, too. He could have shot him. Oh, man.
Was this avoidable?
I would say a lot of people are gonna argue, if he didn't pull out his gun, again, when you mobilize a vehicle at that moment, if the cop is getting wind that you're about to mobilize that vehicle, he's on the side of your car.
Mhm.
That's dangerous. Now you putting my life in jeopardy. And now you're going to put a police chase and you put possibly other people's lives in jeopardy now with the way you're reckless driving. And now we have to chase you and now we have to do all that stuff. That is a bigger threat than what he just did by pulling out his gun.
Yeah.
Now, this was a long time ago, right? This was before they instituted the taser, correct?
No, this was actually 2019.
2019. Okay, so he could have pulled out the taser if they had it. I don't know.
Yeah.
He could have utilized the taser.
But I
However,
don't think he had there wasn't guns. I heard like it didn't sound like a gun. Did he fire that off?
no, he did not. I think he might have. He might have fired it.
Yeah, because I heard something that didn't sound like a gunshot. It was weird. It didn't sound.
I don't know. I have to look at the specifics again, but a lot of people were saying like, oh, he didn't have to pull out his weapon. When that car becomes mobilized and you're on the side of that car, that is a weapon.
Yeah.
Because you're
You're not turning off the
unbeknowingly,
car. You don't want to
yeah.
step out. It's like, yeah.
Or how look, we can pick that apart. And do I think he had to pull out the gun? Maybe not. Maybe it could have been avoidable in him, or they just go on a police chase. He had his ID in hand. He could have just went to his house or go on a chase, now go on a manhunt. Again, folks don't think about it from a logical or a tactical perspective, that if this person now drives off and is in a frantic run and now knows that the cops are looking for him, he's going to go to another state, now commit another crime. And that could pose a serious threat, where now this district did not handle this crime appropriately. So that's where I lean at. Look, I'm not pro cops. Did I think he overreacted there? Maybe. But I'm not there. The way that angle was, I don't know why he grabbed him. It looked like he was about to drive.
I skipped a lot of the conversation. I would have gave you also, more context. But yeah, before we wrap this up, I'm just gonna pull one more to show you the severity of pulling someone over, right? And
yeah.
Here, so you don't take off. I'm not gonna take off. Okay, well, you get the keys. If you ain't gonna take off, I'm just gonna put them up here just so you don't take off. It's for my safety. Look, I'm not. Here you go. Put them up there.
The officer then asked for the ID of the passenger.
You got your ID on you, man?
Well, they're just my passengers.
Yeah, I'm the passenger.
And the officer asked the driver to step out of the car after he says he smells marijuana.
Okay. Why? Because I told you to. Step out.
Whoa. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to give you my insurance card.
It smells like marijuana. I need you to
I'm sorry. Yes, I did smoke. I did smoke earlier. But it's the smell on me.
Okay,
I'm being honest with you.
We'll figure that out.
No, well, I'm being honest with you. Both the driver and the passenger are resistant to the officer's request.
I came
to give him a ride to go see his bellboy.
You got your license and registration?
The passenger in the vehicle is heard asking the backseat passenger for a gun.
Huh? Stop reaching around.
What?
I thought you want me to get the insurance card.
No.
Why? Sir, please.
Stop reaching around.
Oh man, that scared the crap out of me, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something. This is what makes these situations unpredictable, bro. Like, these people are pulling, it's not a job for the faint-hearted. You know what I'm saying? You can't just, you're talking about you pulling people over, especially depending on what neighbor. Imagine being a police officer in Chicago, my brother, where you just, like, it's just crazy. A lot of these neighborhoods, you just never know what's going to happen. Anyways, this is just another quick minute. Might as well finish this right here.
Yeah.
Officer in the hand. Gunfire also strikes his police radio. The officer takes cover behind his patrol unit, dropping his weapon in the process. The officer retrieves his firearm from the ground, dropping his radio in the process, and returns fire. Though his gun continues to jam because he is unable to firmly grip the gun as a result of the gunshot wound to his hand. While the individuals in the car cease fire, the officer continues to shoot as he sees movement inside the vehicle and fears he may be shot again by the suspects.
Jesus.
You should open the door there for cover like they usually do, huh? Let's see what he didn't do. I guess, it's a lot happening. It's hard to, think.
Yeah, he doesn't have backup there, man. He should not be by himself.
Realizing it is broken and urges bystanders to call police.
Shots fired.
His radio is down.
Call the police! Call the police!
Oh, he's in no man's land here, Savory.
Call the police! Call the police! My radio's down! Tell them my radio's down!
Here is a relevant portion of the dash camera video synced with the officer's body.
He's in no man's land there. They can kill him. Ooh, Jesus. Wow.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Look at that. He broke the window back there?
Yeah, just to keep shooting. These dudes are real deal, bro. So I wonder what the hell is going on up there then.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm assuming one of them is. Why didn't they drive off? Someone's hurt. He probably got somebody. That right there, like you said, this is not a job for the faint-hearted. That is tough.
My point in this is those situations don't get reported. When that happens, as if an officer gets shot, you don't hear about the wounds. You don't hear about it's not breaking. And this happens more often than people realize. Nonetheless, man, there's so much to this conversation, man. We plan on together doing more episodes on systemic racism, police brutality,
Mass incarceration.
mass incarceration, and get a little more in depth with the statistics. We kind of did today. We gave some statistics early on, but there's so much nuances to the conversation that we ignore, and we got to stop ignoring that. It's okay to have different opinions than us, but we can't ignore the different facets of this conversation that go beyond race. That's really my point here, so
there's a lot of behavioral aspects we haven't even tapped into. So this is going to be a little series that we want to do where we talking about these specific topics on purpose: mass incarceration, police interactions, and the whole idea of our judicial system being systemically racist currently from our perspective. And we can also talk about the past too. We'll have an honest discussion about that too.
Definitely. That would be great, man. Definitely appreciate every single person for joining us. If you are catching this recording, playing it back, we appreciate you for joining our YouTube channel whenever this was, or whenever you're tuning in. But just take a look at what we're doing consistently day by day, man. We're on Twitch, going live Monday through Friday, usually at 6 p.m. But this is a broadcast that we played back. We're also on Twitter, Macho Fix 88 Savory Edition. Bringing you that content, and you get to see a bit of our perspectives where we might agree and disagree. So that's pretty dope. Both of us also on TikTok. We pretty active there as of recent. So take a look at what we're doing out there. Savory Edition, Macho Fix. And again, most importantly, if you're watching this, you're likely on YouTube. So thank you again for your support. Hit our YouTube, Drinks with a Nobody. And we also hit that subscribe button. Why? Because unlike other channels, we do go live a lot. And we don't want you to miss our live, so you can ask us questions as we're live. So again, thank you everybody for your support. We look forward to continue doing this and really just bringing that content and perspective that might be a little bit different from people who look a little bit different than you might be used to with these perspectives, So again, thank you for joining Drinks with a Nobody, where, we're chucking up these drinks or lack of sometimes, but
cheers.
no last calls, baby.